Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our goal here is pretty simple. We take a stack of sources, pull off the key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to getting up to speed.
Yeah, we dive into the material, hunt for those, surprising details or connections, and try to guide you through it all.
And today we are getting into some really unsettling stuff. We're drawing from accounts in a source called Where the Guilty Whisper. Specifically, reports tied to a guy named Amos Cain and, well, a series of very strange events at an old cemetery in Ohio.
Right. We've touched on this source before, mentioned the shadowy figures and the disturbed graves Amos initially reported.
But tonight, we're looking at what the source presents as the next part of his story, the discoveries he reportedly made after that.
And these accounts, according to Where the Guilty Whisper, they really might challenge how you think about death and maybe what happens around it.
So our mission here is to unpack this reported sequence of events, just as the source lays them out for Amos Cain. Let's get into what he supposedly found next.
Okay, so building on those first sightings, Amos reportedly went back to that specific mausoleum where he saw those men vanish.
Right, the very next morning, wasn't it? He must have been looking for evidence, some clue.
Exactly. But instead of finding the men, or even traces of them, he found something on the mausoleum wall.
Okay, what was it?
Markings. Strange markings. But the source says they weren't just, scratched on. They were carved and burnt into the stone.
Carved and burnt. Whoa, okay. That feels deliberate. Really deliberate. Not just random vandalism.
That seems to be the implication. It sounds like a lot of effort went into it. Amos apparently took photos.
Smart. Did he show them to anyone?
Yeah, he reportedly sent them to a friend, someone at a university, hoping they could identify these symbols.
But what did the friend say? Anything recognizable?
Well, not easily. The feedback was apparently it wasn't Latin, not Hebrew, none of the, standard occult symbols you might think of.
Huh. So what do they look like?
The friend apparently suggested they resembled something much older, ancient pagan symbols, maybe even pre-Christian.
Okay, ancient symbols, but symbols for what?
And this is where it gets really disturbing. The friend's analysis, according to the source, wasn't just about identification, it was about purpose. These specific symbols were historically linked to rituals of reanimation.
Reanimation? Wait, hold on. Like bringing things back?
That's what the source material implies, the friend suggested.
Okay, that puts the disturbed graves in a whole new light. That's genuinely chilling. It's not just messing around, it's ritualistic.
It certainly suggests a motive far stranger than simple vandalism or grave robbing, doesn't it? It points towards, some kind of deliberate ancient practice maybe happening right there.
Wow, okay. And the source doesn't stop there, does it? What's the next thing Amos reported?
The next incident reportedly happened near Plot 47. Apparently a part of the cemetery Amos didn't usually go near.
Why not? Does it say?
The source doesn't specify why he avoided it, just that he did. But he heard a noise coming from that area.
And not just any noise, right? The source is specific.
Very specific. It wasn't coyotes, wasn't the wind.
Yeah.
It was described as slow, wet breathing.
Oh, that's deeply unpleasant. Breathing? From where?
From a patch of freshly dug earth near Plot 47. And then...
Well, then he saw it.
What? What did he see?
A hand emerging from the dirt, pale, stained with soil, described as a woman's hand.
Oh my God.
And then the woman herself. She managed to pull herself partly out of the ground.
Pulled herself out. So,
Yeah.
Okay, given the reanimation symbols, was she?
That's the twist. The source is very clear on this. She was alive. Not undead, not a ghost, a living woman.
Alive. Buried alive.
Half buried, yes. And crucially, the report says she seemed drugged, disoriented.
Drugged, okay. And she was. Could she speak?
She could. She was apparently muttering something over and over again.
What was she saying?
They said I was already dead. They said I was already dead.
Oh, that's horrific. Just repeating that phrase.
That's what the source claims, yes. And she had no ID. Her clothes were torn. Just found there. Half buried, drugged, saying that. This completely changes things again. It's not about rituals on the dead, maybe. It's about doing something terrible to the living in a cemetery.
Exactly. The implications are staggering. Finding someone alive in that state, in a grave, and those words, they said I was already dead, It points to something incredibly sinister being done to her.
So Amos found her? What did he do? He called the police, presumably.
He did. He called the police right away.
And how did that go? Did they investigate?
Well, the source reports, they responded quickly, but their reaction was maybe not what you'd expect.
How so?
They apparently arrived, took one look at the situation, and classified it almost immediately, like within minutes,
Classified it as what? A crime scene?
as a mental health case.
Wait, finding a woman buried alive, drugged, muttering about being told she was dead, and they jumped straight to mental health case in minutes.
That's the report, and apparently she was taken away very quickly. The source uses the phrase, no questions asked, implying they didn't really probe Amos for details about, where exactly he found her or the circumstances.
That feels rushed, extremely rushed.
Inconvenient, maybe?
It certainly raises questions, and it gets stranger. Amos apparently tried to follow up.
To check on her.
Yes. About 2 days later, he went to the local hospital, trying to see how she was doing, maybe find out who she was.
Was she there?
She wasn't. According to the source, there was no record of her being admitted. No patient file matching her description. Nothing.
Nothing at all. After being brought in by police from a cemetery.
Reportedly, she was just gone, vanished from the system, if she was ever even in it properly.
Okay, the quick classification, the lack of questions, and now no record. This is starting to sound less like procedure and more like a cover-up, or at least a deliberate effort to make this woman disappear.
It's deeply troubling when you put it all together. The initial dismissal, followed by a complete lack of any official trace, it definitely fuels suspicion that maybe someone wanted this whole incident buried, figuratively speaking.
And it makes you wonder about those men Amos saw earlier, if they're connected. The source definitely implies a connection, especially with what happens later. But first, there's another layer to the woman found in the grave.
Oh yeah, what's that?
The grave itself, plot 47. It wasn't empty, theoretically. It had an occupant listed.
Who was supposed to be buried there?
A woman named Lillian Grace Harper.
Lillian Grace Harper.
Yeah.
Okay. And when was she buried? Recently.
The records reportedly showed she'd been buried 3 months before Amos found the living woman there.
3 months prior. So, wait. Either the woman Amos found wasn't Lillian Harper, and someone dug up Lillian's grave to put this other woman in.
That's one possibility the source raises.
Or, oh God. Or someone dug up Lillian Harper and replaced her body with this drugged woman.
That's the other deeply disturbing speculation presented in the material. The implications of either scenario are pretty horrific.
Swapping bodies in a grave. One dead, one alive and drugged. That's beyond grave robbing. That's something else entirely. Organized. Vicious.
It suggests a level of planning and, frankly, depravity that's hard to comprehend. It connects all the weirdness, the symbols, the figures, directly to the abuse and manipulation of people living and dead.
Understandably, after all this, the source says Amos Kane just left.
Completely. He stopped going near the cemetery, quit his groundskeeping job, packed up, and moved out of state. You really can't blame him.
No, definitely not. Witnessing that, then the official brush off. But the source says that wasn't quite the end of it for him.
Not quite. About 2 months after he moved, he received a package. Plain wrapper, no return address.
Anonymous package. That's never good. What was inside?
Just one thing.
Yeah.
A thumb drive, a USB stick.
Okay. And did he look at what was on it?
He did. The source describes the content as video footage. Grainy, shot with night vision.
Night vision. Where was it filmed?
Inside the mausoleum. The same one where Amos saw the men vanish and where he found those carved and burnt symbols.
And who, or what, was on the video?
Reportedly, the same 2 men Amos had seen before.
The shadowy figures. Okay, what were they doing?
They were dragging a body, another woman's body, into the crypt.
Dragging another woman. Was she? Like the first one. Alive.
The description is slightly different. This woman wasn't moving at all, but her eyes were open.
Eyes open but not moving. As ambiguous. And deeply creepy.
Extremely. And then there was audio. Just before the video apparently cuts off, one of the men speaks.
What did he say?
The source quotes him directly. This one's not going to fight back. She's already broken.
She's already broken. Oh, that is chilling.
Yeah.
This one's not going to fight back. Implies others did fight back. Like maybe the first woman.
That's a very strong implication, yes. And the phrase, already broken, it suggests some kind of process, doesn't it? That they're doing something to these women beforehand to make them compliant, or perhaps refers to her mental or physical state. It's horribly clinical.
It paints a picture of a recurring pattern then, taking incapacitated women into this mausoleum.
It seems to confirm Amos's worst fears and suggests the activity didn't stop just because he left. If anything, this video is evidence of it continuing.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this sequence based on where the guilty whisper. First, Amos finds these strange burned-in symbols tied to reanimation.
Right. Then, the truly shocking discovery of a living, drugged woman crawling out of a grave belonging to someone else, someone buried months before, muttering about being told she was dead.
Followed by her incredibly swift dismissal by authorities as a mental health case, and then her complete disappearance of any official record, just gone.
And capping it all off, months later, Amos receives this anonymous thumb drive.
Yeah, with night vision footage showing the same men he'd seen, dragging another woman, eyes open, not moving into the mausoleum, with that horrifying comment about her being broken.
The source really lays these out as connected dots, a sequence of events reported by this one witness, Amos Kane. And it stresses that whatever this is, it's presented as real and ongoing.
So when we do a deep dive like this, digging into these accounts, why does it matter for you listening? Why look at this grim stuff?
Well, according to the source itself, accounts like these, disturbing as they are, they shine a light on things that might be happening just beneath the surface. Unexplained events reported by seemingly ordinary people.
Yeah, it forces you to ask questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About what could be going on in places we think we understand, like a cemetery, places we assume are just quiet.
It challenges that assumption.
Yeah.
It suggests that these spaces might sometimes host hidden, deeply unsettling human activities, not just echoes of the past.
Yeah. So to wrap up this part of the dive, these accounts from the Ohio cemetery via Where the Guilty Whisper Are, well, they're profoundly disturbing.
Absolutely. It's a reported sequence that escalates from strange symbols to finding a live victim, apparent official indifference or cover-up, and then video evidence suggesting it's a pattern.
And the source, it doesn't give a neat label, does it? It doesn't say this is a cult or this is trafficking, definitively.
No, it leaves that open. But it insists on the reported reality of the events and the idea that this activity hasn't stopped. It just presents the accounts as Amos Kane experienced them.
Which leaves us, and you, with a final thought, really stemming from the source's overall tone. Maybe cemeteries aren't just repositories for the dead.
Maybe, based on reports like these, they can also be something else. Active locations for hidden, dark activities conducted by the living right alongside the resting places of the deceased. It certainly urges you to look at such places with maybe different eyes,